Italy, the defending Euro champions, knocked out by the Swiss in a stadium where they won the 2006 World Cup. Remo Freuler and Ruben Vargas with both of the goals, and there can be no complaints from Spalletti's men. Let's welcome in Jurgen and Gab now to talk more about it. Let me start with you, Gab. What happened to Italy in this tournament?
Well, Kate, we knew that, this wasn't a particularly talented group, and nobody expected them to be particularly good, but nobody expected them, I think, to be as bad as what we saw against Switzerland today. This was a completely one-sided performance. Switzerland may or may not be more talented. I'm not sure that they are, but they're certainly more intelligent, and they worked harder, and they were just a better side on the day. And I think you have to point a lot of fingers here, and I don't often like to do this, at the coach, at Luciano Spalletti, this chopping and changing every game after he said, we're going to have a strong identity. This certainly hasn't helped. And again, delusional after the game. I don't want to hear you say, it was really, really hot. The other guys are Swiss. They live in the mountains. You don't think it was hot for them? You bring up things like, oh, well, it hurt us to concede that goal 60 seconds into the second half. Really? Thank you, Captain Obvious. The other guys their build-up play was faster than ours. Gee, if only we had a coach that could tell the players, hey, build up the play faster. Their players are faster than ours. You know what? You do have fast players, but what happens is Di Marco's out. Do you replace him with Raul Bellanova, who's arguably the fastest player on the team? No, you don't. You put on Matteo Darmian, who's 34 years old, who's not even a left back. He's a center back impersonating a left back. Look, I thought, and in the end they asked him, do you take responsibility? He's like, well, as a coach, you always have to take responsibility. Like he didn't really want to. I have much more respect for the players who came out very obviously. Gigio Donnarumma saying we deserve to go out. Cristante saying we were terrible, and whatever else. And that's the reality, and that's what I think Spalletti has to face up to.
Well, Gab, you sound pretty animated about this, so you're not buying the fact that Spalletti also said that the other Italian coaches had longer than he had to work with this team.
Oh, yes. That was the other excuse. You know what? If Mancini hadn't left to go coach in Saudi Arabia and chase the money, you wouldn't even be in this job. I don't know. I don't know what is up with this person. He lives in his own world. Look, he's been Serie A Coach of the Year 3 times. He won the title, did a phenomenal job with Napoli. People speak of him in hushed tones like he's some sort of tactical savant. Maybe he is. But maybe he is at club level where you can have endless repetitions, where you can do 2-a-days, where you can work with your players year round. But if you coach internationally, and Jurgen knows this better than anyone, you don't have time. You have to make decisions on the fly. You have to read situations. You have to read individuals. And when it comes to that, I think Spalletti's just really been horrendous in this.
Jurgen, were you surprised to see such a lack of identity in an Italian national side?
Yeah, I think we all are really shocked. And I watched the game with Italian commentary, and obviously they went all over the place then in the second half, over the team, over the coach, the manager. But it was really, really sad to see an Italian side. I've never seen an Italian side with lacking basically everything. No aggressiveness, which they are really good. They're usually always more aggressive than you are. They had no desire to go the extra mile. They had no help for each other. There was no leadership. I mean, Donnarumma tried a little bit to bring in a bit of energy and helping his teammates in front of him. The other ones were all quiet and nobody stepped up. Chiesa didn't say a word. Bastoni didn't say a word. You looked desperately for somebody doing something, do a foul, do something, just to wake everybody up. But this team was non-existent. Against a very strong Swiss side. They deserve every compliment in the world under the leadership of especially Xhaka on the field. Fantastic Swiss performance. But what Italy showed tonight was an embarrassment. It's a shame. You don't find the words, because I know these guys. I know how they live and die for their country and for their national team, for the Azzurri. But there was no energy in that team. There was no nastiness, no desire to do something individual, maybe go at somebody like Scamacca, take the ball and just go at a defender, dribble him one time and then shoot from 25 yards. Just send out a signal, do something. They didn't do anything. The Italian side didn't do anything to make things better. They were just literally waiting until the game was over and they could go home. It was like almost like, please let me go on vacation. It's not my summer in Germany. And that is, it's really sad because I suffer there with a lot of Italian friends. I got bombarded with text messages from my Italian friends. I said, what was this? We never had that before. And so this is going to be an earthquake in Italy the next couple of days. An earthquake, and God knows that far better from the media side. It's gonna go to the extremes.
To Spalletti's comments, though, I knew you yourself were really surprised, Frank, with what he had to say about his team having a lack of tempo, about him needing players with different characteristics as well in this side. You thought it was very, very telling that he said this after the game.
Yeah, it says a lot about the fact that for decades now, and maybe the win 2 years ago in the Euro was as I say, the tree was hidden the rest of the forest. But for decades, I don't recognize the country who brought so many World Cups and so many other trophies that we saw. We're not talking about a random country. We're talking about Italy. Italy showed during the history that they were one of the best, if it's not the best, for a while, fighting against Brazil and maybe Germany, but otherwise, they were the best. And I don't recognize, since 2006, the country that it was so hard to beat. And yeah, the energy wasn't there today, but there are so many other things that they have to work on to make sure that this country, this team, goes back to the best of their best. And they're far away from there. And thinking that it's just an accident would be the biggest mistake they would make.
Spalletti, how much of the blame do you put on him, Stevie?
Oh my goodness. I'm sure Italians watching the team performing will be disappointed the way the players played. But if you're going to go out and you're going to go out the way they did, at least try and extract some dignity from it if you're Spalletti. And all he's done is throw his players under the bus big time. But quite frankly, in doing that, I think he's made himself look bad. Not just because of he's thrown the players under the bus, but Italy went down as though they had no plan. And guess who's responsible for the plan? The coach. Gab's talking about at club level, you can repeat and repeat and repeat, and you can do your drills and everything else. A coach at this level in international football has to at least, number one, get his team competitive and get them in some sort of shape where they know what they're trying to do. And if it doesn't work out, or you're playing against a better team, then everybody can sort of accept it. But you can't accept this. And for me, the way Spalletti's gone about it makes himself look bad, and throwing the players under the bus is not the way to go.
What happens to Spalletti now then, Gab?
Well, he's talked about, now we're going to sit down, we're going to figure out, the future going forward, blah, blah, blah. Personally, I don't think he's suited to being a national team coach. I just genuinely don't. He's done some good things. He's done a lot of weird things in the past, maybe even this business. Talk about throwing players under the bus. He talked about, before the game, how Scamacca was lazy. Maybe that works to motivate. Maybe if you got a player, I challenge him, I call him lazy in public. But you can't do that in a tournament with a guy you hardly know because you've only just called him up to the national team. He needs to start understanding these things. And frankly, Spalletti is the second or third highest paid coach at the Euros. You look at the other coaches, you look at some of these guys who are doing really, really well. These aren't fancy coaches. Maybe that's not what you need. Maybe you just need a man manager, the guy who can come in, read situations. I don't need the tactical savant, especially if he comes from with all the baggage and all the weirdness that Spalletti takes at the job.
Gab, we heard fireworks behind you there. Was that the Swiss celebrating?
No, I'm in Berlin. I believe those were German celebrations. There were certainly more than enough Swiss celebrating on my ride home from the Olympic Stadium, though.
I can understand that Gab is upset. I understand why, and I understand the criticism that you can have towards Spalletti because, as you said, the tactic comes from him, and he has to conduct his team. But at the end of the day, we are talking about the national team, and players who belong in the national team have the maturity and the knowledge about the fact that they can change the game by their energy, and Jurgen was talking about it, by the way they can feel it, and it's a game of intuition, so that they have the possibility to change it and to talk to each other. And we don't see that. We don't see any character in that team. That's the main issue that they have, on top of what Spalletti is not able to do and to achieve with the national team. But the players, they didn't do anything. I didn't see any reaction from the players.
Did you just want to say something there, Gab?
No, look, it's fine. You can. I think I agree on, obviously, look, Frank's been there, and we know how players and leaders can step up. You know, certainly I was there. I thought somebody like Barella tried to do with it. They do have players with personality. But I think when you create an environment like this, when you go into the tournament telling everybody how brave you are, how you're going to, you know, press and pass, and, oh, look, I brought these young players in. Look at Folorunshu. Look at Bellanova. Look how wonderful these young guys are. And then what do? You give me Darmian. You give me Cristante. You give me Stefan El Shaarawy, who I think most people assumed had retired years ago. He didn't retire. He went to China, and instead and then he's been sitting on the bench for the last 4 years at Roma. When you go in a totally different direction, I think it's pretty soul-destroying to the guys who are out there. When you drop Jorginho, again, that's another one. Oh, look, well, Jorginho. I actually think he dropped Jorginho partly because of this range of passing nonsense, and partly because, like a lot of Italian people, and Jurgen can back me up on this, he's superstitious. And Jorginho's the bad luck charm who missed those 2 penalties against Switzerland in the 2 games in qualifying for the 22 World Cup. And that's why he's not there. I mean, I don't know. I'm sorry. I am annoyed. The players, the squad's incomplete. A lot of the players aren't good enough. But they certainly cannot justify this sort of performance. And Spalletti wasn't part of the solution. He was most definitely part of the problem.
And they absolutely cannot complain about the fact, Jurgen, that it is Switzerland who are now going on to the quarterfinals, because they completely deserve to be.
Absolutely. I mean, they played outstanding. I mean, they did everything right. They showed, you know, the spirit from the beginning on. They put Italy under pressure. They won every second ball. I think Xhaka played a fantastic match as their leader. Freuler with this beautiful goal that he scored. Absolutely a brilliant Swiss team. But they took advantage of that weak performance from Italy. They took advantage of the fact that the Italians didn't want to give them a real fight. They didn't want to step up towards them. Didn't show any nastiness. They didn't show any fight in them, and then they cruised through the game. They probably were surprised as much as we all were in front of TV that it was actually so easy to beat Italy the first time since 31 years. This is incredible. This is unbelievable, and they deserve a huge compliment.
They will now face the winner of England against Slovakia. You see Switzerland as a force to be reckoned with and a team to not be underestimated.
Well, I guess the toughest thing is to work out, were Switzerland that good today, or were Italy just a bit of a shambles?
What do you say?
I say that Switzerland, absolutely. If England go through, which we expect, and if they don't, Slovakia as well, if they perform with the maturity and the calmness the way they did against Italy today, then they will be a fight for anybody. You know, Switzerland's a side that on their day can beat anybody in this tournament, no question, including France, who I think are the favourites. So yeah, I think Switzerland were excellent. They were made to look even better probably by a poor Italian side, but the mix they've got of strength at the back, experience, they've got legs, I mean, they've got know-how, they've got all the things you need as a unit. Unfortunately for Gab, just all the things that Italy showed us today, they don't have.
La Nati, they are called, have proved for a couple of years, and I remember the Euro, you know, kicking out the French in the quarterfinal, that they have the quality to go far and to upset big nations. So, of course, if England think that they're going to go through against Slovakia and then after maybe easily beat the Swiss, they are wrong. They're going to be kicked back. So they have to respect them, make sure they have all ingredients, otherwise they're going to suffer. We saw today, it came from everybody, Freuler, Xhaka, and Mbolo, Reader, at the back with Akanji, they're very strong. So it's going to be tricky to every team who's going to confront the Swiss.
Gab, you get your final say here on Switzerland.
Look, I think this is a great example. And there's a story in there. Back in October, Switzerland played Belarus at home with 2 minutes to go. They were 3-1 down. They somehow scored 2 goals in the final minutes, drew 3-3. Yakin afterwards said something really dumb, saying like, well, he was asked about the defensive organization. He's like, well, we don't really need to prepare defensively against a team like Belarus. He was absolutely slaughtered for it. People wanted him sacked. And look, where is he now? He's in the quarterfinals of the Euros, and people like Stevie are saying all these wonderful things about him. I think this shows how things can change, but you have to have empathy. You have to understand the mood. You have to understand your players and the job around you. All qualities that Luciano Spalletti hasn't shown, at least not with the Italy side.